Good afternoon. The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will please retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance, please stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Cristiano E. A. Brito of St. Gregory the Great Catholic Church of Virginia Beach. Following the prayer, everyone will please remain standing and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America by Senate Page Elizabeth Bartos of Springfield.
Heavenly Father, you have blessed us with all good gifts, and for this we express our gratitude. We thank you for your grace and faithfulness toward our nation and its leaders. It is our prayer that we would continue to bless this House of Senate with your wisdom, insight, and increased revelation of your will for our country, our Commonwealth of Virginia, and its citizens. Your gift of our government of the people, for the people, and by the people is so important. Our House reflects your care for us, sensitive always to the rights and needs of all your children. Fill each member with the grace of your wise governance, its leaders with wisdom and discernment to inspire the making of just laws. We humbly ask you to give all those who have the responsibility to represent, provide, and protect we, the people, the courage, conscience, and heart to do the right thing by choosing the great values of life and human dignity over political posturing. May your Holy Spirit guide us into a greater unity with you and with each other, despite our differences. Shed your light on the pressing issues of this day, that we may work together for the common good and the benefit of all. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will call the roll. All those present, please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam President. Senate Journal for Monday, February 7th, 2022.
The senator from Prince William, Senator McPike, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 3.
Ayes 36, noes 3. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will now report any communications from the House of Delegates.
Madam President, I move that we waive the reading of the communications from the House of Delegates.
The question is, shall the reading of the communication be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. All the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 5.
Ayes 34, noes 5. The reading of the communication is waived. The clerk will now report any communications from the governor.
I do not have any, Madam President.
We are now at that most favorite time of our morning, the morning hour, when we get an opportunity to welcome all of you, our guests to your Senate. And so what will happen is your name will be called, and please rise, and then we will applaud at the end. And so, with that, I now recognize the junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Kiggins.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to extend a very special and warm welcome to Father Cristiano Brito, who is here and said our prayer for us this morning from St. Gregory the Great Church in Virginia Beach. He's also accompanied by Father Dominic Leo, Deacon Kevin Gorman, and Sister Brenda Query from the IHM Sisters. These guys have been at St. Gregory for many, many years. It's one of the largest parishes in the Richmond Diocese. I've been a member there for 14 years. They also are leaders at St. Gregory the Great Catholic School, where my children have all attended. They've all watched my children grow up, so I owe them a special just thanks and gratitude for helping me to raise my children to be good citizens and good Christians and Catholics. So it's an honor to have them here with me, and thank you so much for the special prayer you said for all of us. We need a lot of prayer sometimes in this body, so I'm thankful just for your spiritual leadership and guidance for all of us. Please continue to pray for us, and with that, I request that we extend a warm welcome to our special guests.
Good afternoon again to you. Thank you so very much for coming to see us in action, and thank you for what you do on the front lines every day and helping our great Commonwealth. And senators, we will now give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Chair now recognizes the junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning.
Good morning.
I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the body, joining us today in the Senate gallery are two members, office holders in the local Richmond Crusade for Voters. As many of you may know, the Richmond Crusade for Voters was formed in 1956, 2 years after the seminal decision in Brown versus Board of Education. The actual foundation of the founding of the meeting was held at Greater Mount Moriah Baptist Church, which is on North First Street in Jackson Ward. In attendance on that day were three people who became known as the founders: Dr. William S. Thornton, Dr. Ferguson Reed, and Johnny Brooks. Fergie Reed later went on to be the first African American to hold office in the House of Delegates since Reconstruction. So today, during Lobby Day, the Richmond Crusade for Voters and their two officers, Jonathan Davis and Jerry Rollinson, are joining us in the gallery. They are actively involved in many issues facing Richmond. The most recent one was their successful lobbying efforts to get $800 million for public schools. So with that lengthy introduction, Madam President, I'd ask that the Senate give a warm and gracious welcome to Jonathan Davis, the President of Richmond Crusade for Voters, and Jerry Rollinson.
Welcome to your Senate. We often hear, what can one person do? And we know that with one, the world can be changed. One will put 1,000 to flight. Thank you for all that you do to ensure our voting is as it should be. And senators, please join me in welcoming to their Senate. And now the chair recognizes the gentleman from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Good morning, Madam President.
Good afternoon.
Oh, it is afternoon. You're right. Madam President, I rise for the purposes of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Senate. In the gallery today, we have two great guests that are real Virginia heroes. We have first Lynn O'Neill, driver of the yellow number one late model stock car. He is a racing legend in late model stock, Grand National, and all the short tracks in the Commonwealth of Virginia. He is, of course, right now with his friend, Brett Hawkins, who is the president of Eagle Consulting and the founder and CEO of Dominion Packaging Incorporated in Chesterfield, Virginia. Madam President, Lynn O'Neill has been working along with Brett very hard to save one of the gems of the Commonwealth of Virginia, known as the toughest short track of the South, the Southside Speedway. Madam President, you may even see that I have a sticker that says, "Save the Southside Speedway." Southside Speedway is located in Chesterfield, Virginia. Started in the 50s in 1959, it was the place where the Jackie Robinson of NASCAR, Wendell Scott, won a track championship, breaking the color barrier in stock car racing. From Petty to Sadler to even Denny Hamlin, we have had nothing but great, impactful NASCAR drivers that have challenged the Southside Speedway, have won on the Southside Speedway, and have been disappointed in the Southside Speedway. Madam President, in 2020, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, Southside Speedway closed, and it was sold to Chesterfield County. We want to help that track reopen because it is such a part of the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia where racing began. And Lynn O'Neill and Brett Hawkins are here today to advocate for the return of racing to one of the greatest short tracks in all the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Southside Speedway. And for those reasons, Madam President, I now ask that you extend to Brett Hawkins and my friend Lynn O'Neill the warmest welcome of the Senate.
Good morning, gentlemen. We know a little bit about racing here, different kind of racing, but we're all trying to win. Thank you for trying to win for our great Commonwealth as well, and we hope that everything bounces back to the good of the Commonwealth and your business. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them to their Senate. Chair recognizes the junior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for the purposes of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Actually, several introductions. Madam President, in the gallery today, joining us, we have Alicia Vaught, J.R. Vinchizer, who are leading. Alicia is actually the head of the Second Monday Constitution Group, and they meet at 6 p.m. sharp. Not 6:01, 6 o'clock sharp. Every second Monday for those who are interested. And they are keepers of our republic. They have incredible speakers that speak to their group. And we are delighted to have them. Madam President, if you could welcome them joining us today in the gallery. Thank you.
Good morning. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this experiment that we have in America, in our electoral process. Senators, please join me in welcoming them to their Senate. Thank you. Is there any other business for the morning hour? Hearing none, the clerk will call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on third reading.
Chair recognizes the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that the Senate bills on third reading on the uncontested calendar, pages 1 through 7, that's Senate Bill 23 through Senate Bill 724, be placed on their final passage in a block. Any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill.
The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 1 through 7, Senate Bills 23 through Senate Bill 724, be placed upon their final passage in the block, with the understanding that any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block may do so after the clerk has read the number of the bills. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will now read the number of the bills.
Senate Bill 23, Senate Bill 69, Senate Bill 96, Senate Bill 169, Senate Bill 202, Senate Bill 350, Senate Bill 408, Senate Bill 414, Senate Bill 448, Senate Bill 600, Senate Bill 694.
Madam President.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. Could Senate Bill 694 come out of the block and go by for the day?
Without objection, Senate Bill 694 is out of the block and by for the day.
Senate Bill 718, Senate Bill 724.
The question is, shall the bills in the block pass? That is, all the bills except for Senate Bill 694 on page 6. All in favor of passage of the bills will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bills in the block pass.
Regular calendar, Senate bills on third reading. Senate Bill 13, a bill relating to energy performance-based contracts roof replacement.
The gentlelady from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. Madam President, I move that Senate Bill 13 pass, and I'd like to speak to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. What this bill does is it allows the energy service contractors who have contracts with the county to replace roofs when they're working on energy efficiency projects. Right now, there's a prohibition on roof replacement. And if, in fact, a project begins and there's a need to replace the roof after the project has already started, the bill requires that a bid be issued and that a competitive process be in place so a subcontractor may bid on the roof replacement piece. With that, Madam President, I move again that the bill pass. Thank you.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 13 pass? Those in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 24, a bill relating to eviction diversion pilot program, expiration report.
The gentlelady from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that Senate Bill 24 pass, and speaking to that.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. In 2019, the Virginia Housing Commission agreed upon a package of 6 bills, of which the eviction diversion pilot program was one. And this package or this particular bill created a pilot eviction diversion program that included 4 localities: Richmond, Petersburg, Danville, and Hampton. The pilot program was scheduled to begin on July 1st, 2020, and it would have lasted for 3 years with a sunset. The Supreme Court would administer a pilot program and provide data to the Housing Commission so that the Commission could review the data and make recommendations to the 2023 General Assembly. The Housing Commission believed that the pilot eviction diversion program and the collection of data on evictions would provide the General Assembly with information needed to determine what legislation would be needed to better craft solutions to address the high rates of eviction in Virginia. And this, the initial bill passed unanimously in both the House and the Senate. But with the pandemic, the program was delayed. So what Senate Bill 24 does is extends the bill from July 1st, 2023 to July 1st, 2024, so that the program can continue. So with that explanation, I move that Senate Bill 24 pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 24 pass? All those in favor will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 28, noes 12.
Ayes 28, noes 12. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 129, a bill to direct the Board of Funeral Directors and Embalmers to convene a work group to study how to regulate and implement the process of alkaline hydrolysis in the Commonwealth.
The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey. Your microphone.
Madam President, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Madam President, I move that Senate Bill 129 pass, and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the body, this bill is a simple bill that allows the Board of Funeral Directors and Embalmers to simply convene a work group that will consist of, stakeholders that will determine the regulatory and statutory changes needed to legalize the process of alkaline hydrolysis. I know some in the body, Madam President, are just dying to know what alkaline hydrolysis does. There are 3 forms of burial: regular burial, cremation, and the new form that is used in about 8 other states, alkaline hydrolysis, and it's a water-based process. I would go into it in more detail, but when I was describing it over the phone the other day, one of my children overhearing me said, "That's icky." With that said, though, Madam President, I'd ask that the body pass Senate Bill 129.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 129 pass? All those in favor will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0, Rule 36-1.
Ayes 39, no 0, Rule 36-1. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 199, a bill relating to public auction of personal property to satisfy lien. Advertisement requirement website.
The gentleman from Williamsburg, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move Senate Bill 199 pass. And speaking to the motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, members, I'll ask you to note this bill is about the auction of property in a storage unit. That's because the notice provision has already been taken care of. We've had a lot of conversations in our past about mortgages and foreclosures. That is a distinct process that goes in the newspaper, and until the internet's ubiquitous, and even then, I think we should always make sure that before you take someone's most valuable asset, they are noticed, lot, block, and section by name in the newspaper. This is different. You've signed a contract with a storage provider that says, here's my phone number, here's my email, here's my address. And along the way, that storage provider will email you, they'll call you, they'll notice you, they'll send you certified mail and say, please pay your bill and or come get the contents of your property. Once that is over and done with, then we go into the process we're talking about here. And this gives us the opportunity to auction property. And you can notice in the paper, my hometown of Farmville, Virginia, with the internet coverage over there, you're probably going to put it in the Farmville Herald. But you can also use online websites to give contents and pictures. There are two currently in Williamsburg for sale, Madam President. One has a really bad picture. It looks like nothing, and it's going for $10. The other has 8 pictures showing all different angles. It's going for $330. So again, this is beyond the notice provision. This is just doing getting rid of the contents of the storage property that has been left after many notifications to try to get you to come to get your property. That's the bill, Madam President. I hope that we'll vote to pass it.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 199 pass? All those in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 30, noes 7, Rule 36-3.
Ayes 30, noes 7, Rule 36-3. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 200, a bill relating to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, record exclusions, administrative investigations, on-site sewage complaints.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that SB 200 pass, and speaking briefly to that motion.
The senator may say on.
Thank you, Madam President. SB 200 is a bill that really takes us back to our last session, and we had passed in 2021 SB 1396, which was the On-Site Sewage Indemnification Fund. And in that legislation last year, we established the Wastewater Infrastructure Policy Work Group. This bill, SB 200, is coming out of one of the recommendations of that work group. The work group found that some individuals who are eligible to receive grant funding to replace aging septic tanks and to improve the wastewater treatment in their residences may be fearful to report those failing septic systems because of fear of repercussions from their landlords. And so this bill simply provides an exclusion for active investigations of tenants who have reported the failing systems, gives them a little bit of protection so that they can feel comfortable in making the reports and getting access to the grant funding to improve their wastewater treatment facilities around their residents. And with that, Madam President, I move that we pass the bill.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 200 pass? All those in favor of passage will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 297, a bill relating to stay of debt collection activities by healthcare providers, prohibited practice under Virginia Consumer Protection Act.
Chair recognizes gentleman from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Madam President, I move that the bill pass. I'd like to speak to that motion, please.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you. In 2005, the General Assembly, both houses, passed unanimously Senate Bill 1131. One of the things that bill did is said when a health care provider who is provided for a victim of crime has noticed that a claim has been filed with the Victims of Crime Fund, the statute of limitations is told, and that victim of that health care provider can no longer try to collect the debt. Unfortunately, there have been several people that have tried to collect the debt, several health care providers, and that's caused harm to a number of victims of crime who have already been harmed by the crime. There were no teeth in the bill we passed in 2005, and what this bill says is that such a health care provider who tries to collect a debt after he's been advised that the person's filed a claim with the Victims of Crime Fund and the health care lien, the statute of limitations is told, if the health care provider continues to try to collect a debt, he violates the Virginia Consumer Protection Act. It's very simple. Provides some teeth to a 2005 law we passed. With that said, I hope we pass the bill.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 297 pass? Those in favor of passage will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 24, noes 15.
Ayes 24, noes 15. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 309, a bill relating to the Consumer Protection Act, prohibited practices, certain restrictive provisions in contract or written agreement.
The gentleman from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Madam President, I move the bill pass.
Yes, sir.
And explaining the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Yeah. Madam President, this is a consumer advocate bill. If you care about consumer rights, you'll like the bill. All it does, Madam President, is put a provision in the Consumer Protection Act that simply says, using any provision in a contract or written agreement that restricts a consumer's right to file a civil action to resolve a dispute that arises in connection with a consumer transaction that does not involve interstate commerce is outlawed. Any such provision shall be void and unenforceable. Madam President, the National Consumer Law Center has written that forced arbitration clauses take away a Virginian's constitutional right to a day in court. And instead of a judge, a private arbitrator, often chosen, paid for by the company, decides the case in a secrecy proceeding with no appeal. Forced arbitration clauses harm Virginia consumers of all stripes. Everybody from bank accounts and student loans and cell phones and employment and nursing home issues, and the list goes on and on and on, depriving Virginians of their day in court to have a judge, in some cases a jury, decide their rights, which is a constitutional right, as you know. Madam President, nobody appeared to oppose the bill before the committee except the auto dealers, good friends of mine, which is kind of strange, Mr. President, because for years the auto dealers had to fight forced arbitration with the manufacturers. And finally they got the Congress to pass a bill to protect the auto dealers from the manufacturers by passing the Motor Vehicle Franchise Contract Arbitration Fairness Act of 2002. So the auto dealers can avoid compliance with forced arbitration under federal law. it also doesn't really even apply to the auto dealers because I've never seen an automobile that didn't go across state lines. We built the Interstate Commerce Act, in fact, Interstate Act, the Highway Act, back in 1956 because people's cars go across state lines. So that wouldn't apply to the auto dealers in any event. And Mr. President, I hope people realize the importance of the constitutional right to a trial, to resolve disputes. And with that explanation, I hope the bill passes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Shall Senate Bill 309 pass? Those in favor will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 19, noes 21.
Ayes 19, noes 21. The bill fails.
Senate Bill 341, a bill relating to consumer protection, online marketplace, high-volume third-party sellers, civil penalty.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Southern Fairfax County, Senator Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that Senate Bill 341 pass and speak into that measure.
Gentleman may say on.
Madam President, this bill refers to Online Marketplace Consumer Protection Act. As our economy evolves substantially, and right now, lately, it has been evolving very quickly as it relates to e-commerce and the use of the internet for transactions, et cetera, on things. There has been a problem that has been encountered by a large number of legitimate entities as it relates to selling of individual items that are, in many instances, either stolen or counterfeit. And it's become such a big problem that there are many legitimate businesses that are threatened in terms of their viability because of the counterfeit and the stolen goods that are sold on the online marketplaces. What this bill is designed to do is to provide safety and transparency in the online marketplace and to try to flag and evict basically those high-volume third-party sellers that do not have legitimate businesses. There are provisions in here to have the online marketplaces identify who these high-volume third-party sellers are and to collect information from them to determine whether or not they are legitimate businesses with legitimate products that are neither stolen nor counterfeit. The bill would also allow the Attorney General and only the Attorney General to be able to enforce the provisions of this act. During the hearing, the consideration of this bill in the committee, there were some large operators that testified in opposition to this. What was most interesting was that some of these other individuals and corporations that are opposed to this, every one of them, I think, said that they were in favor of doing it through federal legislation and wanted to have the federal bill that has been drafted in place. This measure, with the substitute that is before us that was adopted yesterday, in effect is a mirror image of the federal bill. So what they were saying they wanted in place of this is actually what this is providing. So there is no, in my perspective on things, no legitimate reason not to go after those counterfeit and stolen goods and to be able to make sure that we have the protections built in to allow enforcement through the Attorney General of these provisions. And with that, I would renew my motion to have the bill pass.
The chair recognizes the senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Speak to the bill, Madam President.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to offer somewhat of a contrarian view to the patron on this bill. it just concerns me that we will be creating a patchwork of laws from state to state, and these are national retailers. And we've heard about these criminal enterprises, and certainly you're going to have that in every industry that you have. But I don't necessarily understand why we need to attack the criminal enterprise this way. Why don't we go after the old-fashioned way with detective work and catch these thieves, stop them from breaking into stores and stealing stuff and trying to sell them? I understand all that. There are also a lot of individuals who buy a leftover lot of goods and they sell them on these platforms, either eBay or Amazon or others, and they're mothers that stay at home with children. They're college students. I know a bunch of kids in community college that do this, and they do it absolutely lawfully. And so it seems to me that sometimes when we try to address one issue, we're causing problems elsewhere. And when you're talking about a national platform, you need a national solution so that everybody knows what the rules are, and not trying to figure. I don't even know how you apply if you're selling something legitimately and legally. How do you figure out how to do it from state to state when this thing just blasts out over the internet? So I guess somebody will figure that out at some point, but it does seem to me that a federal solution would be the right path to take in this, and that's why I'm going to vote no.
The gentleman from Prince William, Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. To speak in opposition, I agree with the comments from the gentleman from King George. But furthermore, even looking at my local farmers market, I mean, there are folks who are there and sell in person, but they also sell online. And, 200 items and $5,000 is nothing. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in my community that immigrate from all over the world. And so we have a high spirit of entrepreneurship. And I understand what it's trying to fix, but I think this is the wrong tool to do that, and would significantly impact the entrepreneurs that we have all over the Commonwealth that all of a sudden now have another hoop to go through to make money for their family and to succeed. And for that, I'm going to vote no.
Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking in favor of the bill, our retailers, both large and small, are facing an exploding new challenge of criminals who are systematically preying on our brick-and-mortar stores, stealing goods that can so easily be sold online. We are facing headlines from San Francisco and Chicago. Well, it's happening here in Virginia also. I understand that a Walgreens in Western Henrico had someone come in with a bag and fill it up with name-brand drugs, then walk out. Senate Bill 341 is designed to crack down on that. And I understand the senator from King George's position, but we have a problem now, and we need to take care of it when we can. Thank you.
Senator Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. If there's no one else wishes to speak, I'll try to close here quickly and respond to some of the points that have been made.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. For someone who is lawful and operating without not selling the stolen and counterfeit goods, it's very easy to be able to deal with this for them. It's not a burdensome thing. There are only 3 things that are required as part of this bill. One is that they when they're contacted, they can provide a bank account that would indicate that they are a legitimate entity. Second, that basically to provide just basic information, the individual's name and one of the several forms of identification, either corporately or individually, and a working email address and phone number. That's it. And so that if they have legitimate issues here, they can handle that. And also a business tax identification number as part of that process there. So it is not at all burdensome to the seller if the seller is legitimate. The other thing that's talked about as a patchwork, what is happening now is states all across the country are considering legislation along this line. And it's consistent with what is in here, so it's not really a patchwork. Everybody's moving in the same direction to be able to control the situation more than we are right now as it relates to the high-volume sellers, who many of whom are involved in stolen goods or counterfeit goods, and are, as the senator from Mecklenburg said, are undermining our legitimate businesses, brick-and-mortar businesses that are there. And most importantly, this bill, with this substitute that's on it right now, is in effect a legitimate effort that has been taken to basically have this match up with the languages that's been worked on in Congress. So that it's not inconsistent with what the federal government is considering doing. And I would say either the federal government moves forward, and this would be a companion to that, or if the federal government doesn't move forward, then we really need this legislation, because there would not be that in place in Virginia. And many other states are passing these bills now, and we need to join the crowd to be able to control criminal enterprises and either counterfeit or stolen goods there. And I think it's critical that we do that, and would hope that the bill would pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 341 pass? All those in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 27, noes 12, Rule 36-1.
Ayes 27, noes 12, Rule 36-1. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 375, a bill relating to optometrist laser surgery.
The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President. Speak to the measure.
Senator has the floor.
Actually, I should have moved the bill past and speak to the measure.
Madam President.
Who is speaking? Couldn't see you. I'm sorry.
County.
The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Sudeline.
Thank you, Madam President. Before the senator goes into his remarks, I'd like to ask that Senate Bill 375 go by for the day.
That's fine.
Without objection, Senate Bill 375 goes by for the day.
Senate Bill 393, a bill relating to Consumer Data Protection Act data deletion request.
The Senate will come to order. Chair now recognizes the senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the bill pass, and speaking to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, SB 393, which incorporates Senator Norman's SB 584, is a cleanup bill related to the data privacy bill that the General Assembly passed last year. It ensures that when a consumer makes a request to have their data deleted, the request is meaningful by ensuring that the consumer's data is no longer made available for sale, advertising, or profiling. In the General Laws Committee, there were some issues raised by stakeholders related to language around opting the consumer's data out of the use for sale, advertising, and profiling. And stakeholders have agreed to work on a language, which is happening now, and we have a plan to have a substitute ready following crossover that can address these concerns. I'd note there is another bill coming to us from the other chamber, so we have able opportunity to make some changes that were discussed. I'd ask members of the Senate to pass SB 393 so we continue to work on making a consumer's request to delete their data meaningful. And with that, I renew my motion.
The question is, we have senators. Senator Somerville, gentleman from Eastern Fairfax County.
Will the senator from Alexandria yield for a question?
Will the senator yield?
I gladly yield.
Senator Sorovell.
Thank you, Madam President. When we passed this bill last year, I wasn't too excited about it, and I remember my seatmate here said something like, "This is the bill everybody's going to vote for, and 10 years from now, you're all going to deny you ever did." One of the things that always bothered me about it is that information about me, information about where I live, my phone number, my email, where I shop, whatever, that what I buy, where I drive, all these things that these companies have, I feel like that's my property. And to the extent I don't want to be tracked or don't want to be followed or don't want a company buying and selling my data or giving it to somebody else, it seems to me that ought to be subject to my control. And the way I read this language, it seems to say that if I tell a company, delete everything you have about me, you're in compliance. If you don't delete it, you just stop using it, but you can still keep it. So how is that a good policy?
Senator Eben.
I would answer the senator from Eastern Fairfax by saying that what we're doing is we're really fixing a loophole. I'll give an example. Say that you shop at Acme Supermarket, and you tell Acme Supermarket to delete your data, and they do. That's great, and that's taken care of. But say that you approach a data aggregator that on a weekly or monthly or yearly basis receives data from whether it's Acme Supermarket or a public source or any source, and you tell them to delete your data and they delete it. It's deleted at that moment. But what we'd like to do is have them be able to put it in a lockbox, the aggregators, so they know that they can't use it in the future. So they wouldn't be disseminating it; they would just be putting it in a lockbox and not disseminating it. They want to be able to flag the consumer requested data, because if they delete it and then they acquire it a week later from the same source that the consumer did not opt out of, the aggregator would be in compliance with the law now, the way it is. And so we're really fixing a loophole, putting the data in a lockbox where it cannot be used. When a firm goes after another data pickup after the consumer's request is honored, the data would go into the lockbox rather than repopulating the entity's system and being used again. I think that we're on the right track here to if the goal is to shield the consumer's data, that's what we're doing with this bill. And we are talking with stakeholders about adjusting language accordingly to deal with any concerns. I'd be happy to work with the gentleman as we prepare amendments.
Will the gentleman yield for another question?
I yield.
Senator Sorovell.
Thank you, Madam President. So I understand that if you tell somebody to delete your data and they delete it, if they buy data from somebody else again, they might not realize they've already deleted it and they need to delete it again. I get that. So it seems to me the problem is with these data aggregators. And why wouldn't we say that if you tell somebody to delete your data, that they're to delete it, and if they're buying data from somebody else, they have to tell that person they're buying data from that you don't want anybody keeping your data, so that we solve the problem at its source, instead of allowing these people to keep your data so when they get some hack from Eastern Europe or someplace, your information gets released, which is what a lot of people want to stop from happening.
Senator Eben.
I would say to the gentleman, he's onto something, and that's why we're working on the language. What we want to do is we really just want to make sure that that data is not used. And the way the aggregators were reading the bill as passed, that they could not even keep your name to say that they want to opt out. It's if the consumer would opt out from the source of the data, there's no problem. But there's lots of data, and we don't have a one-stop do not show my data to anyone. That was not in the original bill. If it was like a federal do not call list, that would have solved the problem, but we don't have a state do not release my data to anyone for any circumstances list as of now.
Senator Sorovell.
Thank the gentleman, and speaking to the bill.
The gentleman may continue.
Thank you. This problem just simply highlights one of the many problems with the bill we passed last session, which is that you actually have substandard control over your data. This is information about you that all these companies have. And if any of these problems are violated, any of the things that we passed are violated, the only person that you can go to vindicate your rights is the Attorney General of Virginia. And that, to me, is bizarre because it's the only time I can think of where if somebody injures you, you can't do anything about it yourself. You have to go to the Attorney General to get the Attorney General to do something for you. And I think as this bill continues, it's not even in effect yet. It'll be in effect, I guess, in about 6 months or a year. But as this bill continues to be implemented, the worms are going to keep crawling out, and we're going to keep having problems like this, and we're going to be seeing bills to fix this bill for the next 10 years. I guarantee it.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I rise in support of Senate Bill 393.
Gentleman has the floor.
Madam President, I want to thank the senator from Alexandria for allowing me to work with him on this bill as it is evolving its way through the General Assembly in the legislative process. You know, I'm really a very simple guy, and I listened to the probative and relevant questions that the senator from Eastern Fairfax asked. And I come down to a really simple question. Are we better off doing nothing in this area where he says there are substandard standards, or are we better off trying to evolve legislation that is going to begin to meaningfully protect consumer data? Welcome to the 21st century. I'm sure that most of the individuals in here have an iPhone. Every time you go on a site, a cookie is retaining that information, and it is remarkable the information that can be gathered over a period of time as you continue to use your iPhone. Or, in fact, if you go on some websites on your iPad or your computer, each and every one of us in here have gotten advertisements or feedback from someone that we never had any immediate contact with or offered our information in. So I just say I would hope the body would support it. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than doing nothing? Absolutely.
The gentleman from Western Fairfax County, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was the original patron on the data privacy bill that we passed last year, and I recognize the same problem that Senator Eben is attempting to address. Where my discomfort comes in is that we're passing this off of the floor of the Senate today and hoping that somehow or another through the rest of the process that this can be fixed. I'll be voting no on this. I would hope that others might join me, or that the senator may take this bill by for the day until we can get language that we can vote on. I just am feeling uncomfortable with passing a bill off the floor where there is still talk about continued work that may or may not happen, and for that I'm voting no.
Chair now recognizes again the patron, Senator Eben.
If no one else wishes to speak briefly, speaking to the bill, I wanted to point out that both our former Attorney General Mark Herring and our current Attorney General Jason Miyares have support this bill. The issue is closing a loophole, and in terms of the process is continuing, we are having meaningful conversations. We had people who didn't appear until the last minute before, and we're happy to work with them, and they're having meaningful dialogue. There's a bill from the other side coming through, so this will not be the last time you see this bill.
Madam President.
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Will the senator from Alexandria yield?
I yield.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Stewart.
I apologize. I may not have been paying attention as closely as I should have, but my recollection in committee when we heard this bill was that there was an individual from Consumer Reports who suggested that we could adopt language that essentially would allow these companies to opt us out while deleting the data at the same time. I asked the gentleman if that is a correct analysis of what occurred.
Yes,
Senator Eben.
I believe that is what they were doing. We're just working on fine-tuning the language with them. Both parties agree on the goal of the bill. We just want to put the name in the lockbox. We don't need to retain all the data, and that's what we're working towards.
Madam President.
Senator Stewart.
And so apparently then...
Further question.
Yes.
Will the gentleman yield? Senator Eben, will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
And again, Madam President, I must have not been paying attention, but as I now look at the substitute, it doesn't say that. And so I must agree with my friend from Fairfax. It seems to me that we need to get this right before we leave, because there was a consensus in the committee that the substitute should be such that the individual's data is deleted, but there would be a lockbox containing the name, which said forever on they want their information deleted as well. And since the substitute does not say that, if the gentleman doesn't object, I would ask that we pass this by for the day so we can try to get an amendment to get it right.
Senator Eben.
I have no objection to taking it by for the day.
Without objection, then, Senate Bill 393 goes by for the day.
Senate Bill 431, a bill to direct the Department of Education to recommend options for isolation and quarantine for students and employees at public schools who contract or are exposed to COVID-19, and develop and recommend guidelines for such schools for use as an alternative to quarantine.
The gentlewoman from Enrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. Move the bill pass and speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This bill is a bill that seeks to develop a consensus position on what we do when kids are exposed in school to COVID but are not sick. And as you are aware, there has been incredible patchwork across the country. You've probably heard from parents in your district about the number of times they've had to bring kids out of school, take them and wait 5 hours to get tested, and then keep them out of school for 10 days without necessarily having exposure to virtual education materials. And it has complicated the learning loss our children already have in school. The latest guidelines that are now being perpetuated are really, in many cases, no quarantining at all. There are options to keep kids in school that are very safe, and the studies that have been done show that there's no increased risk in following these protocols as opposed to sending kids home. And so in order to provide some sort of normalization, stabilization, and consistency across the state, VDH would be able to promulgate those recommendations, and school divisions pick them up, and I hope that you will support this bill. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Chair recognizes the senior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President. Would the senator from Henrico yield for a question?
Will the senator yield?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll be happy to yield.
Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'll preface it by saying I think this bill is a very good idea, but I just, on line 14 of the substitute, says that the guidelines shall reflect the most updated recommendations. And my question is, recommendations from whom?
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Those would be recommendations from VDH, who will be promulgating the regs. The idea is that they remain nimble. One of the, which is almost moving so quickly that it's not really relevant, is that there was a test to stay policy and procedure that many states adopted in last fall. And basically what that meant is if you were exposed at school, you didn't get quarantined, you came to school, and if you had a negative rapid test every other day, you stayed in school. That was something that many states had I can't find the word, had the nimbleness to adopt before the school year started last year, and we didn't. And the CDC didn't either. The CDC didn't even recommend test to stay until December. So the idea is that VDH can look at best practices that have evidence to support them across the world, and also to look at what other states are doing and kind of nimbly adapt guidelines that will make it easier on school divisions trying to sort this out for themselves. I hope that answers the question.
Madam President, I think it does, and the senator might, as this bill moves forward, want to clarify more explicitly in this bill who the updated recommendations are for, because I think as written, this is a little vague as to whether it's recommendations from the Department of Health in collaboration with the Department of Education, whether it's recommendations from a local Department of Health, from the CDC, or somebody else. So just suggest she might want to make that more explicit as this bill moves forward.
The Senate.
I trust the senator to do that on the other side. If she'd like to do that over here, I'm fine with that too. So I'll leave that up to her.
Chair now recognizes the senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. I would ask the senator from Henrico if she would yield for a question.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, Madam President, I will yield.
Senator from Arlington.
Thank you, Madam President. Is there a reason why the Centers for Disease Control was not mentioned in this bill?
Madam
Senator
President,
Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. And yes, indeed, the reason is that one instance is that the CDC didn't adopt test to stay until December. And if we had relied on CDC indications alone, which we did, we would not have, we lost a whole semester with kids going home, even though the best science said that it should not. So many other states were able to make that adaptation much more quickly than we were. And so in this case, I think that Virginia has the capacity to make some of these decisions and not delay them and wait for somebody else to come forth. And so that is why only VDH is recommended. And further, Madam President, I do appreciate the recommendations from the senator from Richmond.
Senator Favola.
Madam President, one more point of clarification. And again, I would ask the senator from Henrico to confirm or object to my interpretation. But as I understand it...
Will the senator yield?
I yield.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. As I understand it, the Department of Education would be issuing these are recommendations, so it would be incumbent upon local school boards to either adopt the recommendations or not. Is that a correct reading of your bill?
Senator Donovan.
That is a correct reading. The idea says here is that the guidelines that will be distributed to the local school boards. It does not say that the school boards must act upon it. It's really providing an informational service so that school boards don't have to do work again and again and again and recreate a wheel every time there are updated guidelines.
I thank the senator, and I think she has illuminated some of my concerns, but thank you very much.
The question is...
Madam President, if there's nobody else to speak, I'll just close real quickly.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just say this is a good bipartisan bill. This is about nimbly adapting. This is what we really have to be doing now. Things are changing so rapidly. We're all seeing that. This is a bipartisan bill where we can provide guidelines to our school divisions so that we can keep kids in school. We cannot keep sending them home and hoping for the best when they've had as much learning loss as they've had. I hope you'll support this bill. Thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 431 pass? All those in favor will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, no 7.
Ayes 33, no 7. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 519, a bill relating to casino gaming, sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages in casino gaming establishments, casino employees, wagers, accounting, and games.
The gentlelady from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, Senate Bill 519 is brought forward to address administrative issues, operational issues for casinos, including a new licensure structure for the sale of alcohol beverages, forms of payment to place wagers, and employment matters to keep Virginia law in line with industry standards around the country. The first 2/3 of the bill addresses the ABC issues. Specifically, the bill creates 2 new ABC licenses. 1, a mixed beverage restaurant license for restaurants located on casino premises, and 2, a mixed beverage casino license for the casino operation itself. The final third of the bill addresses operational and enforcement issues. Specifically, the bill provides flexibility to allow for modern forms of payment, such as electronic cash, and includes important customer protections. If okay, Madam President, I would like for the bill to pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 519 pass? Those in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 31, noes 9.
Ayes 31, noes 9. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 656, a bill relating to the Department of Education, model policies, instructional material, sexually explicit content, parental notification.
Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Enrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. Can that bill go by for the day?
Without objection.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 656 goes by for the day.
Senate Bill 662, a bill to require the Department of Education to include certain data on school quality profiles.
The senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, Senate Bill 662 will make data available about the diversity of our teachers and languages that they speak available on Virginia school quality profiles. This will be similar to the way aggregate depersonalized data is reported on the diversity of our students. Virginia school quality profiles provide data about student achievement, college and career readiness, program completion, school safety, teacher quality, and other factors that can input student learning and achievement, such as absenteeism, participation in school breakfast and lunch programs, and student discipline. Research indicates that teachers are the most important school-based factor for student growth and achievement. Research also shows that teacher diversity impacts students' outcome. Students of color who have teachers of a similar race, ethnicity, or lived experiences are less likely to be suspended and more likely to graduate from high school, enroll in post-secondary education, and obtain a post-secondary degree or credential. And with that explanation, Madam President, I move that the bill pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 662 pass? All those in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, no 17.
Ayes 23, no 17. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 737, a bill relating to early childhood care and education entities, administration of epinephrine.
The gentlewoman from northwestern Fairfax County, Senator Boysko.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the bill pass. And speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. SB 737 is also known as Elijah's Law. Elijah was a little boy who died of an allergic reaction while he was at a daycare after being fed a grilled cheese sandwich. This bill will increase the awareness and the signs and symptoms of anaphylaxis in a daycare setting. His father, who started a foundation in his son's name with the mission of ensuring that all infants and toddlers have a safe space to learn and socialize in daycare, recognized this gap in our public policy that led to the lack of training, inadequate procedures, and the inability to treat Elijah with epinephrine, and he sadly passed away. The most common cause of anaphylaxis is food allergies, and the most potentially life-threatening reaction can occur within seconds of exposure. Infants and toddlers are particularly at risk because the rate of anaphylaxis is actually higher in children from ages 0 to 4 than in any other group. And symptoms are more difficult to recognize in these children because quite often they can't describe their symptoms. They can't tell anybody that anything is wrong. And so those children who are in a daycare setting are particularly at risk for anaphylaxis. So this bill directs the Department of Education to assist daycare settings in establishing policies and procedures and training to help prevent anaphylaxis, recognize the signs and symptoms of a suspected event, and ensure that the first-line treatment for anaphylaxis that is appropriately weight-based epinephrine for children, infants, and toddlers is available for immediate administration. This has broad support from the Elijah Alavi Foundation, the Allergy and Asthma Network, the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, the Food Allergy Research and Education Food Allergy and Anaphylaxis Connection Team, and numerous food allergy advocates throughout the Commonwealth. It will assist children in making the transition between a safe home environment and daycare, and will prepare the child care staff to respond appropriately when an emergency allergic reaction occurs. And I ask that you pass the bill.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 737 pass?
Madam President.
For what purpose does the gentleman from King George rise?
Would the gentlelady yield for a question?
Will the senator yield?
Madam President, I yield.
Thank you.
Senator Stewart has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I'll couch this as I very much support the gentlelady's bill. This is a really important issue, and too many children die because people don't know how or not willing to shoot them with an EpiPen when they need it. And so my question, Madam President, goes to the amendment adopted by the committee, and I guess the Senate adopted it. But I would ask the gentlelady, do we really need that amendment that says an appropriate weight-based dosage? Because most children who have an allergy such that they would suffer from anaphylactic shock have their own EpiPen, and they keep it with them as long as they know it. And I don't know how a Good Samaritan would know what the proper dosage was. They're just going to use that EpiPen to try to save that child's life. And with this amendment, would the gentlelady not agree that that just kind of provides a giant truck door for people to come in and sue them when they're trying to help? And I think the reason for the bill is trying to encourage Good Samaritans to help these children when they need it. That was a long question, I know, but
Senator Boysko.
Madam Chair, Senator Stewart, my understanding is that it's been fairly recent that they had weight-based dosages of EpiPens available for the littlest children. And quite often in a daycare setting, they have the babies and the toddlers in one area and the bigger kids in another, so they would be separated out. What we wouldn't want to do is give too much of the EpiPen to a little baby. And now that they have those new weight-based prescriptions for them, we would want to make sure that those were available for them.
I thank the gentlelady. Speaking to the bill, Madam President.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I support the bill wholeheartedly, and I think it's a great bill. Don McEachin did a lot of good work in this area before he left the Senate, and it was very important. I happen to have one of those children that has a peanut allergy, so I know what an EpiPen or the trainer feels like in your thigh. I just would encourage the gentlelady to think about this amendment, because if the purpose is to give them some immunity for Good Samaritan assisting, that amendment really hurts it. And I hate for people to be afraid to help these children when they need it.
The gentleman from Rockingham County, Senator Obenshain.
Madam President, I rise to speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I certainly didn't intend to rise to speak to this bill, but I just want to put my friend from King George and his mind at ease. If the gentleman would read the bill and take a look at the line, take a look at the line where the amendment is placed. It is placed at lines 557 and 565. Those provisions do not address the immunity of school officials. Those simply speak to the regs that are to be developed by the board. So I hope that satisfies any lingering concerns that the gentleman from King George has, and that he even will vote for this good bill.
Madam Chair, Madam President, if there's
Senator Boysko.
Thank you, Madam President. If there's no one else, I appreciate my good friend from Rockingham, excuse me, and I move that we pass this bill.
Again, the question is, shall Senate Bill 737 pass? All those in favor of passage will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bill passes handily.
Senate Bill 764, a bill relating to public bodies, security of government databases, and data communications.
Chair recognizes the senator from Southern Fairfax County, Senator Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that Senate Bill 764 pass.
Will please come to order.
I move that Senate Bill 764 pass. And speaking to the bill,
the senator has the floor.
Madam President and members of the Senate, obviously over the last several years and even quite recently, we've been dealing with various issues related to computer hacks and those types of things that have presented some real challenges in terms of operations of government, but also of a lot of the private sector in various companies and operations across the Commonwealth and across the country. What this bill does is actually was sort of a last-minute development in terms of how to address these things with the hacking and the problems that occurred in our legislative data system back in December when there was an inability to be able to draft up all the bills that had been submitted for consideration. There was a group of people in the administration that worked on this issue, including State Police, VITA, the Information Technology Agency for Virginia, the Chief Information Officer, and the data systems of the Commonwealth. What they've come up with here is a provision whereby if anyone in a public body or any public agency has a hack to the system, or if there's a weakness that's identified, they are to immediately report that so that there can be consideration of what is happening there and what actions can be taken to minimize the negative impact of what the hack might be have otherwise caused there. What it does is it provides the Fusion Center Fusion Intelligence Center of the State Police to be able to review these, so that where there's criminal activity behind it, that can be dealt with as best as possible. Even though sometimes it's very difficult, given some of the sources of the problems are foreign sources. And then to quickly involve all parties in understanding what the nature of the situation is, what is being done to address it, and what the outcomes should be. And to have that coordinated between the state police, between the chief information officer, VITA, and others. It does apply to public bodies at both the local and state levels. And there's an enactment clause that we adopted yesterday to have both local government individuals as well as those at the state level working on this collaboratively in terms of how best to deal with these situations in the future. And with that, I would renew my motion to have the bill pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 764 pass? Those in favor of passage will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bill passes.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on second reading.
Chair recognizes the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that all Senate bills on second reading on the uncontested calendar, pages 15 through 17, that's Senate Bill 622 through 753, be advanced to their engrossment in third reading in a block after the adoption of any amendments thereto. Any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill.
The question is, shall all Senate bills on second reading on the uncontested calendar on pages 15 through 17, Senate Bills 622 through 753, be engrossed in advance to their third reading in the block after the adoption of the amendments, that any senator desiring to remove a bill from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will now read the number of the bills.
Senate Bill 622, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute.
Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 705, reported from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
Senator from Western Fairfax County, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 725, reported from the Committee on Transportation. Senate Bill 733, reported from the Committee on Transportation. Senate Bill 749, reported from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Substitute is agreed to.
Senate Bill 753, reported from the Committee on Transportation.
The question is, shall all the Senate bills now be engrossed and advanced to their third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills are engrossed and advanced to their third reading.
Regular calendar, Senate bills on second reading. Senate Bill 739, a bill relating to public, elementary, and secondary schools and public school-based early childhood care and education programs. Student instruction, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendments, and there is a floor substitute.
The gentlelady from Enrico, Senator Donovan.
Madam Chairman, with the recommendation that we reject the committee amendments, I move the amendments.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be rejected with the recommendation that it be rejected?
Shall it be agreed?
So, shall it be agreed to? Very confusing. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. No. Committee amendment is rejected.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Donovan.
I'm so sorry, Madam President. I now defer to the senator from Fairfax City with his floor amendment.
Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to waive the reading of the floor amendment.
Question is, shall the floor amendment, the reading of it, be waived? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the body, the floor amendment adds a subsection C. I think it's self-explanatory. It basically allows a parental option for parents of any child that's attending a K through 12 school in Virginia while on school property about whether or not to wear a mask. I think you'll find that the language is pretty narrowly focused, and passage of this amendment and passage of the eventual bill will put us on the same footing as those noted bastions of liberty like New Jersey, Delaware, and Connecticut. I thank you.
The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The chair is uncertain. We will move to a recorded vote. All in favor of agreeing to the floor amendment will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 29, noes 9.
Ayes 29, noes 9. The floor amendment is agreed to. Senator Donovan. Engross.
Madam Chairman, Madam President, please forgive me. I move that we engross and advance this bill to its third constitutional reading.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 739 now be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 673, a bill relating to local correctional facilities entry privileges, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services.
Junior Senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that Senate Bill 673 be engrossed and passed along to its third constitutional reading.
Question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 689, a bill relating to foster care, barrier crimes, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services.
Senator from Williamsburg, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Bill 722, a bill relating to improper parking, reported from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
The senator from Western Fairfax County, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Substitute is agreed to. Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam President. I move now that the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? Those in favor will say aye. I have one person. Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bills on first reading.
Chair recognizes the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that all Senate bills on first reading on the uncontested and regular calendars, that's pages 19 through 23, Senate Bill 377 through 732, that the rules be suspended and the first constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the first reading of the titles of Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 19 through 23, Senate Bill 377 through 732, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Ayes 40, no 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. And the senior senator again from Fairfax County, Senator Sasslaw.
For the day.
The question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, now on second reading, be passed by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will now go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate joint resolutions on second reading. SJR 83, confirming appointments by the governor of certain persons communicated to the General Assembly January 21st, 2022.
Gentleman from...
Oh, I'm sorry. Reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
The gentleman from Alexandria, Senator Eben. For what purpose does the Senator Surville rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Madam President. I believe I have a floor amendment.
You do.
All right. So we'll take up the floor amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I move to waive reading of the floor amendment.
The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. Senator Sorovell.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move the floor amendment. Speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This floor amendment is pretty simple. It's just the resolution is printed, had the wrong name of the existing head of the Department of Aviation, and this just it had the person that was there 4 years ago, and this just corrects that. It's really more for the historic record than anything of substance, but I would just ask that we approve the floor amendment.
The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The floor amendment is agreed to. And now the patron of the bill, Senator Eben.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I move the passage of SJR 83 as now amended. This is
engrossed in advance.
To engross in advance SJR 83. This is the governor's agency head, Governor Youngkin's agency heads.
We don't read it at this point. Yeah. We'll do that tomorrow. We're just engrossed in advancing it.
Yeah, I move that we engross in advance.
Yes, sir. The question is, shall the Senate Joint Resolution 83 be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Joint Resolution 84, confirming appointments by the governor of certain persons communicated to the General Assembly January 21st, 2022. Reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections with amendment.
Senator Eben, the senator from Alexandria.
I move the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be adopted? The senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
The gentleman here for a question.
Senator Eben.
Could you explain that amendment, Madam President?
Sure. This amendment on 42 and 43 removes the governor's nominee to be Secretary of Natural and Historic Resources from the resolution.
I thank the gentleman. Madam President, speaking to that at the appropriate time.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, members of the body, I rise to speak in opposition to the amendment which takes Andrew Wheeler off this list for confirmation. I've had the opportunity of working with Andrew on the landing team for natural resources, and to say that he was impressive would be an understatement. You all, or many of you all, saw his interview with the Natural Resources Committee a few weeks ago, and I've never seen a grilling with more difficult questions of any candidate for any position in this General Assembly. And after I spoke with folks who were on that committee and listened to that interview and asked those questions, every member that I spoke with said he had absolutely knocked the ball out of the park. He is an incredibly accomplished man. He's done a tremendous amount for clean air and water Virginia. It was under his watch at the EPA that the first rule was developed to require schools to test for lead so our children wouldn't get lead poisoning. He led the fight in Pennsylvania to stop the ag runoff to help clean up the Chesapeake Bay and meet our TMDLs in 2025. He got the funding to do that Hampton Roads injection project down there because our aquifer is being depleted at an alarming rate, so much so in Virginia Beach now they have saltwater infiltration, and it was Wheeler who got the money and helped get that project done. His record on clean air and clean water is frankly astonishing. But I get the politics. I understand that some of these environmental groups out there don't like him because of who he worked for. And that's just a real shame, because we have an opportunity here to confirm somebody who has the real credentials. And I've not heard one member in this body object to his credentials or his qualifications. It's all been about who he worked for. You know, there have been people that I have supported in the 14 years that I've been here that I didn't really think may have been the best candidate, but I respected that governor who picked him. And I respect this governor who picked Andrew Wheeler. But I also have tremendous respect for Andrew Wheeler because his credentials are impeccable and he should be confirmed, and I hope we can defeat this amendment.
The chair recognizes the senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President. Speak to the measure.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I sit next to Senator Stewart in the Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee, and to say I greatly value his opinion would be a great understatement. And I sat through, in fact, I presided over the questioning of Mr. Wheeler, and he was impressive. And he was, to use the proverbial phrase, the smartest guy in the room. Sometimes that's not enough. And just let me give you a little bit of context, and I say this humbly, because I recognize when I'm around people that have served on a national level, and I never will, and have been in charge of very important things and make decisions and carry out instructions, and I understand that, and that's part of their legacy, just like it's part of our legacy when we vote on bills. But let me start with this. Article 11 of the Virginia Constitution has a charge to it. It says, to the end that people have clean air, pure water, and the use and enjoyment for the recreation of adequate public lands, waters, and other natural resources, it shall be the policy of the Commonwealth to conserve, develop, and utilize its natural resources, its public lands, and its historical sites and buildings. Further, it shall be the Commonwealth's policy to protect its atmosphere, lands, and waters from pollution, impairment, or destruction for the benefit, enjoyment, and general welfare of the people of the Commonwealth. That is the role of the Secretary of Natural Resources. It's not commerce. It's not thinking of ways to get around environmental rules. It's actually protecting our lands and waters. Now, I've talked at length with Mr. Wheeler. I met with him. I talked to him on the phone. I regret I hadn't had a chance to talk to him before I had a chance to speak today. I took his nomination seriously because my colleague from Westmoreland is exactly right. The governor is entitled to a presumption on his cabinet secretaries. But at the end of the day, it's a presumption. And when we're dealing with a candidate that was part of an administration, and he can say, well, it wasn't my act, but it defunded the Chesapeake Bay. It dismantled the Clean Power Plan, dismantled it. It basically removed rules that were dealing with coal ash and particulate and effectively silenced scientists. And I know Mr. Wheeler can say, well, I did the best I could within my limited sphere, and I understand that. But sometimes you got to do a little bit better than that. And again, Andrew Wheeler clearly has the brains and the talent to be a member of this administration, probably to hold public office. Maybe not in my Senate district, but somewhere. But the bottom line is he's not the right person for this secretariat. This secretariat needs to be somebody who's focused on preserving natural resources, not just finding ways to get around those rules. And I recognize he has an expertise to perhaps help us with the CSO issue in Richmond, to help us perhaps achieve the WIP goals. And again, I have absolutely nothing negative to say about the man. It's just this is a statement of our values as articulated in our Constitution. It's not my values. It's what's in our Constitution. So I say this again with humility. I say this with some degree of trepidation. But I do think that he's not the correct person for this job, and so I support the resolution. Thanks.
Just to speak? The patron, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the committee amendment, as the senator from Fairfax City said, Mr. Wheeler is highly intelligent and certainly knowledgeable on federal environmental law. I personally have found him to be affable and assume he's pleasant enough to work with. If we're to confirm Mr. Wheeler, though, I'm confident he'll use the intelligence and subject matter expertise to do exactly what he did at the federal level, systematically deconstruct regulations that protect our environment. To me, the fundamental question before us is, will Andrew Wheeler protect our atmosphere, lands, and waters from pollution, impairment, and destruction? And there's a quote from Maya Angelou who said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. So what did Mr. Wheeler show us? 150 former EPA officials who worked under both Republican and Democratic administrations said, quote, as EPA administrator, Mr. Wheeler pursued an extremist approach, methodically weakening EPA's ability to protect public health and the environment, instead favoring polluters. Several senators who voted to confirm Mr. Wheeler as deputy EPA administrator, voting him to trust him with our nation's environment, felt betrayed. It was U.S. Senator Joe Manchin who made the arguments many will make on the floor today when he gave Wheeler an ill-advised chance to safeguard our water, air, and land, stating, when I voted for Mr. Wheeler to be deputy administrator of the EPA, I did so because the president deserved to have his team in place. I also believed I could work with Mr. Wheeler. When Manchin was given a chance to vote for Mr. Wheeler again as the permanent administrator, he made it clear that he vehemently regretted that decision, stating, I voted against him to be the permanent administrator of the EPA because as acting administrator, he hasn't demonstrated a desire or a will to make any meaningful progress on clean drinking water standards and has rolled back clean air standards. We cannot afford to make the same mistake that the U.S. Senate made in confirming Wheeler as EPA administrator. I'll cast my lot with the bipartisan scientific community and those who've dedicated their careers to fighting climate change and preserving our finite natural resources. Let's listen to the people who've seen his work up close and move forward with this set of nominations without lines 42 and 43 and make a serious, rational choice for our precious natural resources. Please vote yes on the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment on Senate Joint Resolution 84 be adopted? Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. All right. The chair is uncertain. Going to go to a recorded vote. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The committee amendment is agreed to. Senator Eben.
I move that we engross and advance SJR 84 to its third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be engrossed and advanced to its third reading? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Senate Joint Resolution 85, confirming appointments by the governor of certain persons communicated to the General Assembly January 18, 2022, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
Senator Eben.
I move that we engross and advance SJR 85. And speaking to that, these are the...
Senator, this is on second reading.
Move that we engross and advance.
Question is, shall the bill be engrossed in advance to its third reading? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution is engrossed in advance to its third reading.
Supplemental calendar number 1, uncontested calendar, Senate bills on first reading.
Chair recognizes again the senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Madam President, I move that all Senate bills on first reading on the uncontested regular calendar, pages 1 through 5, that's SB 280 through 565, that the rules be suspended and the first constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the first reading of the titles of Senate bills on the supplemental calendar, uncontested and regular calendar, pages 1 through 5, Senate Bill 280 through 565 be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. The gentleman from Fairfax County.
I would now move, Madam President, that those bills be passed by for the day.
Question is, shall the Senate bills on the uncontested and regular calendar, now on second reading, be passed by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will now go by for the day.
Madam President, first I inquire of the clerk, does that complete the calendars for today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Second.
For what purpose does the senator rise?
Yesterday, having voted on the prevailing side, by which Senate Bill 104 was defeated, I would move that we reconsider that vote.
The question is, shall the vote by which it was defeated, Senate Bill 104, be reconsidered? Those in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bill is reconsidered.
I now move that SB 104 go by for the day.
Without objection, Senate Bill 104 now goes by for the day.
Now, Madam President, one more.
Yes, sir.
In preparation for the crossover starting Thursday, it's our plan that we will take the Senate bills that are on the uncontested calendar on second reading all the way through to final passage. As you know, this is something that we do every year about this time. We get ready for crossover. Okay, I just want to make that announcement.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you. Rise for an announcement, Madam President.
Senator has the floor.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'm disappointed. Last week's practice, I had exactly 3 players there. That's not going to get it done, folks. March 2nd is our match against the House of Delegates. And so we do have practice tonight, 7 o'clock at the Franklin Street Gym. Just come on in, tell them you're a friend of Chaps. But please be there, bring your shoes, and practice starts immediately at 7. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Chesterfield, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Last week, we recognized the Lunar New Year. And for billions of people around the world, the Lunar New Year is the most important and the most festive holiday of the year. In agrarian cultures across Asia, the Lunar New Year marks the period when farmers could rest from their work in the fields and family members could travel from far to be with loved ones, to usher out the old year and to welcome in the new. Last week, however, the new Asian American Pacific Islander Caucus of the Virginia General Assembly recognized the Lunar New Year and extended its best wishes to the many and diverse AAPI communities across the Commonwealth. And this year, the Lunar New Year coincided with the start of Black History Month. Within the AAPI caucus, we want to acknowledge how very important and opportune this moment is as we consider the intersectionality of Black History Month and the historical connections between our AAPI communities and the monumental social, cultural, and racial progress that has been made by those individuals and those movements that we honor during Black History Month. And I wanted to just point out especially 3 areas of significant progress that were shaped by Black Americans and that opened the doors for our AAPI communities. Sorry, I lost my page here. Pardon me, Madam President, I lost that page here, but let me come back here. So the 3 movements that really shaped the progress of our AAPI communities. And the first was the legal progress that ended the bans on interracial marriage. We in the Commonwealth know the one case in particular that made such a difference in the United States, and that was the case of Loving versus Virginia. In 1967, that landmark case ended the ban on all interracial marriages in the United States, and it impacted our AAPI communities in a significant way. The Lovings were supported in their case by many civil rights groups, including also the Japanese American Citizens League. And the second moment of intersectionality occurred in 1965 with the Voting Rights Act that provided critically important protections to Asian American voters by prohibiting discriminations against people belonging to language minority groups. That finally, it was the Immigration and Nationality Act, and this act ended racial immigration bans that once excluded Latin American, Asian, and Africans from immigrating to the United States. So at the height of the civil rights movement, this act in particular was signed into law by President Johnson at the foot of the Statue of Liberty in 1965, and the immigration histories of the majority of Asian Americans who now live in the United States began after that date. So clearly the AAPI communities and in the United States and in Virginia owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to those individuals and to those movements that we honor during this month. Thank you, Madam President.
The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen of the body, many of you either worked with or knew Senator Roscoe Reynolds or former minority leader Ward Armstrong. It is a sad day for both of those gentlemen, and if you have an opportunity to call them up and console them, please do that. Last night, both of those gentlemen are graduates of Duke University. And last night, the University of Virginia Cavaliers traveled down to North Carolina and upset the number 7 team in the country. The UVA Cavaliers came away with a 69-68 victory when their shooting guard, Reese Beekman, hit a 3-pointer with 1.5 seconds to go. I spoke with Ward Armstrong earlier today, and he is literally inconsolable. So please give those gentlemen a call, and congratulations to the Fighting Virginia Cavaliers.
Is there any other business to come before the Senate? Hearing none, the clerk will now report any announcements on the desk.
Announcements for Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. The Committee on Privileges and Elections will meet 15 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room 3 in the Capitol. The Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources will meet 1/2 hour after adjournment in Senate Room A, Pocahontas. The Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on Higher Education will not meet. This is a schedule change. The Education and Health Subcommittee on Health will not meet. This is a schedule change. The Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on K-12 Education will meet at 3:30 p.m. in Subcommittee Room 1, 5th floor, Pocahontas. Senators Saslaw, Howell, Norman, Lucas, Newman, and McClellan. The Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on Resources will meet immediately after the K-12 Subcommittee and upon adjournment of the Committee on Privileges and Elections in Senate Room 3 in the Capitol. Senators Howell, Norman, Newman, Barker, and McClellan. The Virginia Legislative Black Caucus will not meet. This is a schedule change. The Northern Virginia delegation will not meet. This is also a schedule change. For Wednesday, February 9th, 2022, the Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on Public Safety will meet at 7:30 a.m. in the Senate Leadership Conference Room, 6th floor, Pocahontas. Senators Lucas, Norman, Ruff, Edwards, Peterson, Marsden, and Eben. The Women's Legislative Roundtable will meet at 8:30 a.m. in the Tidewater Room, 4th floor, SunTrust Center. The Committee on Finance and Appropriations will meet at 9:00 a.m. in Committee Room B, Pocahontas. The Democratic Caucus will meet at 11:00 a.m. in Senate Room 1 in the Capitol. The Republican Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m. in Senate Room 2 in the Capitol.
The chair now calls on the President pro tempore, the senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12 noon on tomorrow.
The question is, shall the Senate adjourn until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The Senate stands adjourned until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow.